Welcome back to Sunday Sound Off, and our first hot topic of the night. Would you consider trading your Dono Ventura? Cody, you're up.
I would not. The simple reality with pitching right now is that you've seen what bargain bin shopping gets you in the major leagues. Not much. He's not owed that much money. If he turns out to be a fifth starter, this deal works out. If he turns out to be a decent bullpen piece, this deal works out. You are paying Luke Hochevar $8 million a year, which is what you owe him on the back end of this. Two $12 million options are the maximum amount. I mean, it's Soria money. Right now, with Ventura and the young arms and some of the other questions about the rotation, right now the easy move is to stand pat and hope that you can develop them. Danny Duffy he's 3 years younger. It took 3 more years to get Duffy ready. If I'm them right now, I wouldn't even consider trading Ventura.
Rustin, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. Obviously, you'd want to listen on any sort of deal. Nobody's untouchable, especially a young starting pitcher who has a decent contract and would be maybe coveted by other teams. But the problem is his stock and his value is probably about the lowest it's been in about 2 years. I'm not sure why you would want to kind of sell off now. I think you might as well ride it out. I think he's owed $6 million next year. He's signed through 2021. As Cody said, even if it's the team options in 2020 and 2021, it's only $12 million, which is a lot of money, but they can figure it out when they get there. But obviously, I think he's still a young pitcher, and I think you can get some value over him in the next couple of years.
TJ?
Well, do you consider trading him? Yes, you absolutely consider it. If somebody else is willing to offer you something that's more valuable than your Dono Ventura, then you take it. But I tend to agree with Cody and Rustin that he's still in the developmental stage. He isn't what he is at this point. Does he have some immaturity issues? Yes. Does he have some problems with consistency? Yes. Is he hard to understand and figure out as a player? Absolutely. Do some of his teammates seem to resent him at times? Yes. There are a lot of reasons that you can talk yourselves into to not like your Dono Ventura. But if you stay the course with him and you hope that it works out, then it's great. But if it doesn't, you can still trade him at a later date.
All right, here's our second hot topic of the evening. Is Chris Sale worth the baggage after shredding the White Sox over the weekend? What do you think, Rustin?
Is like the baggage filled with torn up jerseys that were taken by. This is like probably my favorite baseball story of 2016 and maybe of this decade. He went into the clubhouse during batting practice with I think it was a knife. I don't think he actually had scissors. I think he used some sort of knife to cut these jerseys up so he didn't have to wear them. Is he worth the baggage? Yes, he's worth the baggage. He's the best pitcher in the American League. The Royals will say to a man in their clubhouse that he is the best pitcher that they face all year. And I think most of his issues stem from an insane intensity. He stood up for Drake LaRoche in that whole story during spring training. He seems to really like to have an issue with the Chicago White Sox front office whenever they tend to do anything to overstep their power or anything like that. But I don't necessarily think he's a bad teammate. I don't think there's really any issues with him in the clubhouse, and he would certainly be worth it. I don't think the Royals are necessarily have any sort of pieces to make a run at him. That's hugely far-fetched and not going to happen. But any other team with tons of prospects, yes, go after Chris Sale.
Well, TJ, what do you think? He goes in there. He didn't like the throwback uniforms. He shredded them all. Do you think he did it just because he wants out, or what's his deal? Well,
his opinion of high fashion notwithstanding, I think that you have to understand that there is a hot, crazy scale. If you're a 10, then you listen to, or if you're dating a 10, you listen to her talk about her cats for 45 minutes. Your tolerance for the crazy is a lot more. And when you have a talented pitcher like Chris Sale, yes. You have somebody, he's arguably the best pitcher in the American League. That point's been made. You could say he's the second best, maybe the best left-handed pitcher in all of baseball before or after Clayton Kershaw. And I think that you deal with the crazy when you have somebody who's that talented. And the good thing about baseball is that he doesn't really have to interact with anybody else. You can just go out there and pitch every 5 days and be elite.
Cody, is he crazy or crazy smart?
I think if you're the White Sox, he's not worth the trouble, but if you're another team looking to buy, he is. And by the way, if we're cutting up jerseys, can we go back for when the Royals did the future jerseys and get rid of that abomination, because those were awful. For anybody else in Major League Baseball, Sale has to be worth it because he is, as both have pointed out, one of the best pitchers in baseball. And when you have that kind of skill level, someone will listen. And by the way, you mentioned Ventura. He actually went to the clubhouse to try to fight Ventura once. So he's no different
That's right.
in the scale of trying to get in trouble, having, anger issues at that point. But in the end, he's a lot better pitcher, which means people will take a chance.
All right, our final hot topic: what teams should the Big 12 invite to join the conference? TJ, lead us off. This will be fun.
What they should do is invent a time machine, go back to 2008, beg Nebraska and Colorado not to leave so they don't have to deal with all this crap now. They can't do that. So BYU and Houston, that's probably what it's going to be. It seems like everybody is happy with those two options amongst the coaching ranks, and even the Texas teams are on board with Houston, which is interesting. Those are the two teams that make the most sense. We've heard some talk a little bit about maybe from Bill Snyder saying he knows of two teams that want back in. Look, let me tell you. Nobody wants back in the Big 12. And I know Big 12 people like to think that they've got it all figured out and everybody wants in the club again, and things could never be better than they are now in the Big 12. But that's just not the case on the outside looking in. A lot of teams have problems, but nobody seems to have problems like the Big 12, and they always seem to get it wrong. So I would not be the least bit surprised if, with a very obvious decision in front of them, or choices to make, BYU and Houston, that they screwed this one up too.
Cody?
I like the addition of Houston. It does make sense, and it's a lot like when they added Baylor, that, there's pressure from other teams in Texas and from the governor of Texas. You heard Abbott say that he wants Houston as part and doesn't start without Houston. But for me, if you're going to go BYU, the trouble that comes with playing on Sundays, why not go after a school like Colorado State? They've got a new stadium coming in 2017. You can essentially, tell Colorado, well, it's fine. We don't want you back anyway. We'll go for the team next door in Colorado State. If it were me, I'd go even further west. I mean, I'd make calls to teams in Arizona, but that is a long shot and incredibly unrealistic that they're going to land those. If you're the Big 12, adding a small school in Houston and then adding a big one in Colorado State, or at least closer to a bigger school with a little more intrigue, I think it makes sense that those two teams would be the one that the Big 12 went after.
I couldn't imagine flying from Phoenix, Arizona to Morgantown, West Virginia. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. Rustin, you used to be the beat writer for the Kansas Jayhawks, and you're in the midst of all this Big 12 talk at one time or another during that tenure. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm going to go off the board a little bit here and think about it this way. I don't really trust the Big 12 to make the right decision on really anything after the last couple of years. What's the best thing for fans? Let's put some great cities in the Big 12. After covering the league for a while, with no Columbia, with no Lincoln, Nebraska, with no Boulder, Colorado, it's kind of a dry league. It's not a lot of great places to go watch football games or basketball games. Fort Collins, Colorado, that's a great city. We can go there. Let's do that. Like Yukon, I don't know about that place, but it's a different part of the country. That would be okay. How about Florida? I don't know. Add one of those Florida schools. But think creatively. I don't know that we need to add Houston or any another Texas school. It seems like we've kind of got that covered. But start with Fort Collins. That's got a lot of nice breweries up there. Lovely part of the country. That would be a place to go watch football.
I'm with you on that one. I love the Rocky Mountains, so I'm with you on that one.
Go with the breweries.
Yeah, and the breweries. I like them as well. Okay. All right, that's all. We're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back with the final thoughts from the panel right after this.